Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
If anybody wishes to ask a question, please do so. It's kind of like an open sit down. Ms. Alma?
Yeah.
Well, the invasion has come and it's here. Would you be willing to cut the lures, the food stamps, the welfare? You know, if you put bird seed out there, you're going to get birds, and lots of them.
That's absolutely appreciate you asking that, because I did leave it out in my talk. And my legislative agenda is very comprehensive. I want the strongest e-verify system in Texas that we can get. I'll stop the magnets that attract a lot of illegals to Texas. Look, I lived in, let me just say, where it's in-state tuition or it's any of the other benefits. But I want to say this. I lived in Mexico for a year. I homeschooled my children so they could grow up in a conservative Christian environment. And since I did that, I was able to tie the mattresses to the roof of the minivan, and off we went to Mexico for a year. I put my children into Mexico in Mexican schools. We drove from Manzanilla to Veracruz. I've driven to Mexico City multiple times, and I know Mexico quite well. I did that so my children could be immersed in the culture and the language. I even put them in the afternoon schools, the morning and afternoon sessions in Mexico. I put them in the afternoon sessions in the public schools in Mexico. They were young. And I love Mexico. I love Mexicans. It's my favorite country to travel. It's my favorite food to eat. And they're hardworking, great, God-fearing people. But they're being a bad neighbor. They're just being a bad neighbor. They cannot sit around and just flood our country, our state, with people coming in from other countries. Right now, in the last Border Patrol saying, as y'all probably know, that they've captured illegals from 120 different countries since January 1st. These are not just Mexicans. Of course, Mexicans are way less than 50% of the people coming in. These are people from all over the world. When I was at San Antonio Airport coming down here, there were Haitians, Africans, they were all over the world. We had people from Russia, Pakistan, you name it. We're capturing them all. This is a pure invasion. This is a premeditated attack on Texas by the Biden administration. There's no question about it.
Voter replacement.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we got to do something about it. I hope that I'm in office before it's too late. Because if Greg Abbott wanted to secure the border, he could have done it 7 years ago. He could have done it 7 days ago. So one has to figure in their own intelligence. He's got the border the way he wants it. He comes down here and sets a card table up, has a press conference, and he said, we're going to arrest people for trespassing. And then the judge says, you can't do that, or you can't stop these vehicles. I said, really? You're going to listen to a federal judge? This is an invasion. One thing you got to understand about a law, I'm not worried about a lawsuit. I'm not. I'm worried about Texas. I'm here to protect Texas and Texans and Texas taxpayers. We've been shouldering this burden for decades because the federal government won't do their job. And now we're being invaded. And Texas will go all blue, there's no doubt about it. He's already put in his Biden administration amnesty for every illegal in the United States of America. He's going to give amnesty to every one of them. And so, anyway, I'm here for Texas. You got to remember, it's important to remember also that we have 3 legs to our Constitution. And the federal judges are only here to interpret the law as they see it. I also have the authority to interpret the law as an elected officer. And it's almost an equal system. Judges cannot enforce the law. They just interpret it. So, is that an answer to your question? Yes, sir.
Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I have a question. You know, when Rick Perry was governor, and of course Abbott was governor, they're still saying the same language. Right before the election, they bring in millions of dollars in here. They bring DPS down here. They do the dog and pony show all over the border.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, once the election's over with, DPS goes home and it continues. And it just seems to me that it doesn't work. With Governor Perry, he tried it. Governor Abbott tried it. It hasn't worked. Is there any way that Texas can do a little bit more in terms of dealing with Mexico? Because we live on the border. We see the problems here. And yes, we're going to do everything we can to, obviously, we don't want them necessarily to come in, obviously, illegally. But it's going to continue because nobody puts pressure on Mexico.
That's right.
Mexico keeps getting billions of dollars
Yes.
by the government, and no one seems to say, hasta aquí, that's it. You're not going to get any more money. They need to put soldiers on their side.
That's
and
right.
They got to put soldiers on the Mexican southern states down there, and they don't do it. And I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are.
Well, you're absolutely 100% correct in my opinion and how I'm going to operate as your governor. My goal is to make sure Mexico secures their side of the river. Look, they've taken our jobs. They've opened all the factories down there, and all of our factories have left Texas now, and all we get is the equipment the simple goods coming in. We've got to put the pressure on Mexico. They're very capable. Look, that's what I was going to say. I've been in Mexico. Mexicans love making money. There's really rich people in Mexico, let's be real. And they're going to squeal bloody murder when they can't get all their stuff up to Texas. We do hundreds of billions of dollars worth of trade with Mexico annually. I'm really going to put the heat on that. I'm going to make them suffer. And look, I'm not, and if I do anything, it would only be for inbound commercial traffic from Mexico. It's not for outbound. It's not for people that have the proper paperwork. It's not for the daily trade or any of that. It's for these big corporations in Mexico to make them suffer. And then I think they'll acquiesce. If they don't, look, I'm here to save Texas. I've got Plan A all the way through Plan F. So I plan on meeting with the governors of the neighboring states, whether it's Leon or Tamaulipas. Yeah, but he's a little bit in trouble.
Quite a lot ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to meet with him right now, but maybe Coahuila or Nuevo or Chihuahua. But I'm setting that up. I'll meet with the federal government if they want to meet. But I want to hear it from them. I want to hear it from their side. They've got in a position. But I'm telling you, they're going to stop. They're going to secure their side of the river, and I'm going to put the pressure on them to do that. I totally agree. That is the solution. We can put the wall up. We're going to do that. We can stop people coming over here, but they have got to stop them on their side.
Sorry to mention it, but don't you think another problem is that the corruption that we have between the government in the Mexican side, in this case on the border, and the American side? I don't know if you can check them out or how to oversee that, but we see it, we live here, and probably the arrangement that they have between these families or mafia are better organized probably than the drug cartels. Yeah. And we've seen it because it doesn't matter if you stop them from coming in, if the government locally here are going to let them in.
Yes.
And that's the issue. I'm an immigrant, I'm sorry, legal immigrant. I was by choice, and I believe in the Constitution, and they hired me a resident, and then I became a citizen. I'm very proud of it. But I don't like what I see. The double standards that we have had in the last 20 years here in Laredo has really killed us. The number one border in worldwide import-export is Laredo, Texas. And Mexican Americans have created that infrastructure in the States, has been number one in the world, and we don't have the city that represents that. And we don't know how much money really stays from that business, which is our commodity, remains in Laredo. that probably can help all the citizens in Laredo with cheaper taxes. I mean, some type of benefit that other states have, like free tax and all that stuff. We deserve something better because we produce for the United States and for all around the world. And we have the technology, and we have adapted, and we have created, and we have put our money where our mouth is. And that's one thing I learned from the franchise that I represent. But right now we're not living. I mean, freedom is no longer here with us in Laredo. I'm sorry to tell you, not even in Texas. The freedom has been taken away from us. We're afraid to speak up. Today they asked me if my kids were going to come. And as a joke, I said it, because he's legal. He may have a chance to lose his job because he's legal. And it's a joke, but it's true.
Yes, it is. If we don't have, well, as governor, of course, I would never let you get punished for anything, whether it's not taking the vaccine, not wearing a mask, or, or look, tyranny's on the march, period. Yeah. It's on the move. And I never thought I would see in my lifetime what's happened. The catalyst for me was last spring of March of 20, when Abbott unilaterally just decided he was going to shred the Constitution and destroy 3 million jobs in one day. He put 3 million Texans out of work in one day. And made them dependent on the government. Then he closed our churches over the holiest week of the year, Easter. And you couldn't baptize the babies, you couldn't properly get married, you couldn't bury the dead, you couldn't visit the sick. I mean, I'll just tell you a quick story. On that topic, my first grandbaby was born right before that, my granddaughter, and we needed to get her baptized. I'm Catholic, I was a convert in 09, and I had to find an underground priest. I couldn't find a priest in Dallas that would baptize our baby. I finally found this patriot. He's a really great patriot. And he really is solid as a rock. He said, wasn't our parish. And he said, look, meet me in the parking lot Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. I don't want anybody to come but the parents and the grandparents. And he said, I don't want anybody to see you. And he said, I'll unlock the door. And we did. And he did. And he scurried us into the church, and he locks the door behind us. And he said, did anybody see you? And I said, well, I don't know, And he said, well, I'm really worried that Abbott's police are going to take us all to jail. And I said, I'm not. Let's have a beautiful service. And we did. We had a great Baptist. And then we were leaving. He did the same thing. He unlocks the door, and he said, look, I need you to run to the car. Just hurry to the car. I don't want anybody to see you. And he locks the door behind us. This is in Texas. We've never closed our churches in the history of Christianity because you're talking about salvation of souls. You're talking about people's salvation. Abbott did. He empowered our churches with fear to alienate us, to make us worship in a gymnasium, and we didn't even have to go. We still don't even have to go to church anymore in the Catholic faith. And so Abbott did all that. That's on him. I would never have done that. The Constitution doesn't give me the authority to pick winners and losers. Which businesses donated to my campaign? Who's hiring the best lobbyists? That's who the winner is. That's never going to happen in the Huffines administration. Because I swore an allegiance to the Constitution. I just said, the most important part that we've all got to get straight is what is the fundamental role of government? The fundamental role of government is always to defend your God-given liberty. Your liberties come from God. That's what it was written for. Now, I'll do everything I can with the government to educate people about the virus, to help them come up with uncensored information, help them come up with the cures to the virus, and not be censored out and canceled out by the media. We were lied to about the origins of the virus. We were lied to about what cures the virus. We were lied to about almost everything related to this virus. I mean, did anybody really buy into the idea it came from bat soup? First, I'm a Boy Scout. All my kids are Eagle Scouts. I know that if you cook your soup for 10 minutes, it destroys every virus. I'm sorry. You can cook raw soup for 10 minutes and drink it if you had to. I mean, I believe that virus came from a bat soup. There's no bats within 1,000 miles of Wuhan. They're all lies. They're all lies. Fauci is nothing but a liar. He's a fraudster. Greg Abbott buys into that because he's the elitist. He's a member of this club that I was telling you about. They don't believe what you believe. They don't care what you think. All they care about is what their club members think. What do your fellow club members want? Oh, I don't, that's what they care about. They care about the money, and they care about the lobbyists, and they care about their club members. That's all they want to know about. They don't care about us. Unless it benefits them. If it benefits them, they'll care about us. Tyranny is on the move. Socialism leads to communism. Communism leads to tyranny. And the horrors are unimaginable. This has been played out through human history time and time again. And it's being played out right now at an accelerated pace that I never thought was possible to us all. When I say awaken the sheep, that's our only prayer of surviving this. They're going to, this is what happened in Cuba. It's what happened in Russia. It's what always happens. Stalin was a socialist. Hitler was a member of the Socialist Party. They're going to silence us. The best chance we have is right now. If you think it's hard to stand up with a courageous voice, wait a year or two. And the consequences are more severe. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose you can't go to school. You can't get an education. The government's going to come after you. They're going to criticize you. They're going to silence you. Then they'll arrest you. If they arrest you, or they won't ever just arrest a bunch of people. They're too smart for that. Evil's way too smart. Evil knows. If you know you're being manipulated by evil, do you think evil's would back off? Of course they back off. If you know evil's too smart for that. Evil says, don't worry about that. Let's go to the beach and have a margarita. Let's drink another pina colada. Everything's not as bad as you think. That's what they think. That's what evil's going to do. Oh yeah, well yeah, that's the easy path. Let's do that. I can do that. We can all do that. Let's go let's go to Cancun and have some fun. There's nothing the matter with having fun. There's nothing the matter with enjoying life. We all need to enjoy life, but we also need to be aware of what's at stake. We need to understand how serious the situation is and how fast it's eroding away from us. Our liberties are eroding rapidly away from us, as fast as the waves coming into the beach. Do you know how few pillars we have holding up the wharf? Not many. Not many. The bar's really low. We got DeSantis in Florida. Like I said, I don't know him personally, but I know I like what he's doing. But, if you're shouting in the library, it's easy to be heard. There isn't no one standing up. Who is standing up with courage? Who's willing to tell the government to stick it? The federal government, or the state government, or the judges. Everything's at stake right now. I'm going to make sure Texas gets its swagger back. We're going to be the tip of the spear.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Energy policy.
yes sir.
Texas is blessed with abundant natural resources. We obviously know oil and gas, but there also is coal and the business I'm in, which is uranium. We went through a nice fun time back in February that impacted even way down here. You see all the dead trees everywhere. I went through Colorado and Utah this past week. $3.75 a gallon in Colorado and just at $4 in Utah. We're just adding taxes on top of it to pay for these greeny, weeny policies that all the states are doing. What are your plans to keep the economic engine of Texas, which is the natural resources, continuing to keep those jobs going and really support the domestic, meaning the Texas and the U.S. energy industry to keep those jobs and the clean environment that those industries do produce right now, even though everyone says they're all big polluters. They're doing everything even better than what the requirements do on a national level.
Well, I'm a big proponent of fossil fuels and the natural gas, oil industry in the state of Texas. I've actually invested in that space. So I understand it pretty well. I'll do everything I can to promote it. And also, the whole ERCOT situation is really on Abbott. He's the one that appointed the Public Utility Commission. These people were not qualified to be on there. They're the ones that picked the board members of ERCOT. They were from all over the country, even out of the country. Let me just rewind on that real fast. Texas used to have, and does, of course, we have an independent grid from the federal system. That's why it's called ERCOT. The federal system is called the FERC system. We worked for 100 years in this state to make sure we were independent grid, to make sure we were not part of the FERC system. We were the envy of not only the nation, but really the envy of the world. Because that's why data centers would come to Texas, so they get diversification in the power system. And we worked, I tell some stories on that, so hard to make sure the lines are running across the Red River or the Sabine River, or even now in the Rio Grande, we sell juice in New Mexico. You know, why? We never did that for 100 years. And we didn't do that because we had pride in our system. Abbott doesn't care about the system. Our legislature doesn't care about the system anymore. We've cross-pollinated ourselves with green energy. Everybody wanted green energy. Well, obviously, we don't have green energy when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining. Abbott got their award just 30 days before the blackout from the Green Energy of the Year award. And he was happy to take all that. So it's a long-term solution for our energy situation. They did make some changes this session, mainly with the governments of ERCOT. But there's and they had some other changes that they're supposed to weatherize and things like that. But there's really not much enforcement in that legislation, how they can enforce the weatherization. My plan would be to force the the green energy guys, the wind guys, to always provide electricity when the wind's not blowing. They either got to buy it or co-produce it, or some way they've got to provide 24/7 power, just like the natural gas plants do. And natural gas is a good, clean burning energy. We're going to stop all the tax credits for the renewables, and we're going to make sure we've got a good, robust, reliable grid. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'll, of course, always support the oil and gas industry.
Mr. Huff.